Drummerly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
The kitchen sink was leaking again, dripping with the persistence of a Chinese water torture, when I heard Talia stumble through the front door at 2 in the morning. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like gunshots in the silence of our suburban tomb. "Ethan?" she slurred, her voice carrying that particular brand of drunk confidence that comes from too much wine and too little conscience. "You still awake, boring boy?" I kept my head under the sink, wrench in hand, pretending the U-joint was the most fascinating thing in the world. If my life was a sitcom, this would be the season finale. Too bad I wasn't laughing. "Work function run late again?" I called out, my voice echoing in the cabinet space. "3 nights this week. New company record." She laughed, that bitter sound she'd perfected over the past 6 months. "Oh, it was productive. Very productive." The refrigerator door slammed. Ice clinked into a glass. "I slept with Brad tonight." "You remember Brad, right? My ex? The one who's now my district sales manager?" The wrench slipped from my fingers, clanging against the pipe. I'd known something was wrong, but hearing it said so casually, like she was discussing the weather, hit different. "And guess what else?" she continued, her voice getting closer. "Your precious boss, Dana? Yeah, we've been having our own little team-building exercises. Turns out she's not as straight as everyone thinks." I slid out from under the sink, looking up at my wife of 12 years. Talia stood there in her designer dress, makeup smeared, holding a glass of water like it was a weapon. Still beautiful, still the woman I'd married, but something behind her eyes had gone cold months ago. "Cat got your tongue?" she taunted. "Or are you just processing how spectacularly boring you are compared to real excitement?" I stood slowly, wiping my hands on the dish towel. "You're drunk, Tal. Maybe we should talk about this tomorrow." "I'm drunk on freedom, baby. Freedom from pretending this marriage means anything." She pulled out her phone, waving it at me. "Want to see the messages? Brad's quite the poet when he's horny. And Dana, she's got plans for both of us." The phone buzzed in her hand, then again. Her smartwatch lit up with notifications from Brad and Dana B. Even drunk, she was sloppy. "You know what your problem is, Ethan?" She leaned against the counter, studying me like I was a bug under glass. "You think being steady and reliable makes you husband material. But women want passion. We want danger. We want men who take what they want. Like Brad takes married women? Exactly like that." She drained her water glass. "He doesn't ask permission. Neither does Dana. They see what they want and they grab it." My phone buzzed. Text from our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. "Sorry to bother you so late. Thought you should see this." Attached was a blurry photo of Talia and a tall man kissing outside Murphy's bar downtown. The timestamp showed 2 hours ago. I held up the phone. "Grabby indeed." Talia's face flushed, but she didn't look ashamed. If anything, she looked annoyed at being caught. Sue's always been a nosy bitch. Sue's looking out for me. Something my wife apparently stopped doing. "Oh, please, don't play the victim. We both know this marriage has been dead for months. I'm just the one with enough balls to do something about it." She stumbled toward the stairs, pausing at the bottom. "I'm taking a shower. Try not to bore yourself to death while I'm gone." As her footsteps faded upstairs, I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the detritus of our conversation. The sink still dripped. The refrigerator hummed. And somewhere upstairs, my wife was washing off her lover's touch. I picked up her iPad from the counter, still synced to her phone, still logged into everything. Talia had always been careless with technology. She'd left her digital life wide open, probably figuring I was too boring to look. The messages loaded quickly. Brad's contact photo showed a smug face I remembered from company parties. 37 messages in the past week, each one more explicit than the last. Dana's were fewer but more calculated, discussing opportunities and discreet arrangements. But it was the group chat that really caught my attention. Talia, Dana, and someone named Nikki sharing screenshots of texts, laughing about vanilla husbands and clueless warehouse guys. My name appeared frequently, always as the punchline. I screenshotted everything. Every message, every photo, every cruel joke at my expense. My phone's memory filled up with evidence of my wife's betrayal, each image burning itself into my brain. The shower started upstairs. Steam would fog the bathroom mirror soon, hiding Talia's reflection like she'd been hiding her true self from me. I opened my laptop and created a new folder. Insurance. They wanted games? I'd learned to play hardball in the warehouse, dealing with union reps and corporate suits who thought they could steamroll the quiet guy with the clipboard. Time to show them what boring really looked like. The next morning, Talia acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, and headed off to work in her power suit like she hadn't just blown up our marriage 12 hours earlier. "See you tonight, honey," she called from the garage. "I might be late. Big presentation to prep for." I bet she did have something big to prep for. At the warehouse, I went through the motions of my morning routine, checked the overnight reports, reviewed the shipping schedules, made sure the guys had their assignments. But my mind was elsewhere, turning over possibilities like a Rubik's Cube. "Boss, you okay?" asked Jimmy, my lead forklift operator. "You look like someone stole your lunch money." "Just thinking, Jim. You know how dangerous that is for management." He laughed, but his eyes stayed concerned. Jimmy had worked for me for 8 years. He could read my moods better than my wife. After lunch, I drove across town to Grizz's boxing gym. The place smelled like sweat, leather, and honest work. Everything my life wasn't anymore. "Ethan!" Grizz Howard looked up from wrapping some kids' hands. 60 years old, built like a fire hydrant, with scars that told stories he'd never share. "Twice in 1 week? Either you're getting serious about training or something's eating at you. Can it be both?" "Could be. But that look in your eyes says it's mostly the second one." He finished with the kid, sent him to the heavy bag. "Want to talk about it?" I told him everything. The confession, the messages, the photos. Grizz listened without judgment, occasionally nodding like he'd heard it all before. "So, what do you want to do about it?" he asked when I finished. "I want to hit back, hard." "Course you do. Question is, you gonna swing wild or aim for the chin?" "What's the difference?" "Wild swinging gets you tired and sloppy. Aiming for the chin drops them clean." He pulled 2 pairs of gloves from the rack. "Let's work out some of that anger. Then, we'll talk strategy." An hour later, my knuckles ached and my shirt was soaked, but my head was clearer. Grizz handed me a towel and a bottle of water. "Feel better?" "Some." "Good. Now listen. You want real revenge? You don't go for the obvious targets. You go for what they value most. Your wife values her reputation, her career, her control. The boyfriend values his status, his marriage, his toys. Your boss values her position, her secrets, her power. And how do I hit all that without ending up in jail?" Grizz grinned, showing teeth that had seen better decades. "Son, the best fights are won before the first punch is thrown. You just gotta be smarter than they think you are." That evening, I put the plan in motion. First stop, Brad's neighborhood. Easy to find his address through the company directory. Harder to find his house, tucked away in one of those gated communities where everyone pretended their lives were perfect. His black BMW sat in the driveway like a monument to his ego. Vanity plate, CLOSR1. Real subtle, Brad. I parked down the street and waited. At 9:30, lights went out in what looked like the master bedroom. By 10, the house was dark. I walked up the driveway like I belonged there, keys ready. The first key scratched cheater into the driver's side door. The second key took care of the hood. For the grand finale, I swapped his front license plate with one I'd grabbed from a junkyard earlier. The dead fish from the bait shop went into the trunk, tucked up under the spare tire, where it would take days to find but only hours to smell. I was walking back to my car when a flashlight beam hit me. "Excuse me, sir. Security. Can I ask what you're doing here?" My heart hammered, but I'd learned years ago that confidence could sell almost any lie. "Thank God you're here, officer. I was just helping my buddy Brad with a flat tire situation. You know how these BMWs are with their fancy run flats? The guard, a kid who couldn't be more than 25, lowered his flashlight. Oh, okay. Everything all right? Yeah, just finished up. Brad's already inside. You guys do a great job keeping this neighborhood safe. Thanks, sir. Have a good night. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel, adrenaline singing through my veins. Phase 1 complete. Back home, I found Talia's laptop open on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email, still trusting that her boring husband would never think to look. I created a new email account, truthteller2024 at protonmail.com. Anonymous, encrypted, untraceable to me. Then, I forwarded screenshots of all the messages to the company's HR director, Lorraine Walsh. The subject line read, Inappropriate workplace relationships. Urgent review required. The body was simple. The attached messages document inappropriate relationships between employees in violation of company policy. Thought you should know. I hit send at 11:47 p.m. By morning, the warehouse was buzzing with rumors. Jimmy found me in my office around 10. Boss, you hear about the drama at corporate? What drama? HR's doing some kind of investigation. Word is they're looking into inappropriate relationships between managers. Got the whole office stirred up. I kept my face neutral. Huh. Wonder what that's about. Don't know, but my cousin works in HR. Says Lorraine's been in meetings all morning with the big shots. My phone buzzed. Text from Talia. Something's happening at work. HR wants to see me this afternoon. Do you know anything about this? I texted back, know anything about what? Hope everything's okay. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, never mind. Probably nothing. But it wasn't nothing, and this was just the beginning. By Wednesday, the corporate office was a war zone. Talia came home that night looking like she'd been through a blender, her usual composure cracked around the edges. They're asking questions, she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen counter with more force than necessary. HR, the regional director, even some suit from legal. Questions about what? I was making dinner, playing the concerned husband role to perfection. Workplace conduct, inappropriate relationships. Someone sent them screenshots of private messages. I looked up from the stove, letting concern creep into my voice. Screenshots? What kind of messages? It doesn't matter what kind. Her tone was sharp, defensive. The point is, someone's trying to sabotage me. Probably that bitch Jennifer from accounting. She's always been jealous of my position. Have you talked to Dana about it? Talia's face went pale. Why would you ask about Dana? You mentioned her the other night. Said you two had been working closely together. Thought maybe she'd know what's going on. Dana's dealing with her own situation right now. I bet she was. According to Jimmy's cousin, Dana had been called into HR twice yesterday, and once this morning. Word was she'd hired a lawyer. And what about Brad? Maybe he knows something. Talia's hands clenched into fists. Why do you keep bringing up Brad? Because you brought him up the other night. Said he was your district sales manager now. Thought he might have insight into office politics. She stared at me for a long moment, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in months. You're different. Different how? I don't know. More attentive. Like you're actually paying attention to what I'm saying instead of just nodding along. Maybe I'm finally realizing what I might lose. The lie came easily, wrapped in just enough truth to be believable. I was paying attention. I was realizing what I might lose. I just wasn't planning to fight to keep it anymore. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Your wife's boyfriend is having a rough week? Thought you should know his car got vandalized and his wife found some interesting photos in her email. I deleted the message and looked up to find Talia watching me. Who was that? Work. Jimmy's got questions about tomorrow's shipment. She nodded, but her eyes stayed suspicious. The next morning brought more chaos. Brad's wife had filed for divorce, citing adultery and emotional abuse. The story was all over social media, complete with screenshots of his messages to Talia. Someone had been very thorough in documenting his infidelity. At the warehouse, I called an all-hands meeting. All right, listen up, I told my crew. There's some drama going on at corporate. HR investigations, policy reviews, the whole 9 yards. I want everyone to keep their heads down and focus on the work. Don't get involved in office gossip, don't take sides, and don't give anyone ammunition to use against us. What kind of drama, boss? Asked Mike, one of my younger guys. The kind that ruins careers and destroys families. The kind we stay far away from. Jimmy caught my eye and nodded. He understood. In the warehouse, we looked out for each other. Corporate politics were a different world, with different rules and different casualties. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Bar downtown, the same place where Talia and Brad had their photo taken. I ordered a beer and waited. At 8:30, they walked in together. Talia looked nervous, constantly checking her phone. Brad looked angry, his jaw tight and his movements sharp. They took a booth in the back, heads close together in urgent conversation. I couldn't hear the
She just gave me a massage! That's it!
Remember, I won't be a fool!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
words, but the body language told the story. Accusations, denials, finger-pointing. The classic breakdown of co-conspirators under pressure. I finished my beer and walked over. Talia? What a surprise. She looked up, her face cycling through shock, guilt, and anger in rapid succession. Ethan, what are you doing here? Meeting a client for drinks. You remember Brad, right? From the company parties? Brad stood up, all 6'2" of entitled asshole. Ethan, good to see you. Is it? I kept my voice friendly, conversational. Because from what I hear, you've been having a rough week. Car troubles, marriage troubles, work troubles. That's a lot of trouble for one person. His face darkened. What's that supposed to mean? Just making conversation. You know how it is in a small company. Word gets around. Talia grabbed my arm. Ethan, let's go home. We need to talk. Do we? Because I thought you were here for work. Big presentation to prep for, right? The silence stretched between us like a loaded gun. Other patrons were starting to notice the tension, conversations quieting as they sensed drama. Brad leaned forward. I think you should leave, Ethan. This is a private conversation. Between my wife and her ex-boyfriend? How private can it be? Ethan, please. Talia's voice was barely a whisper. Please what? Please pretend I don't know what's been going on. Please act like I'm still the boring husband who doesn't pay attention. Brad's hand moved toward my shoulder. Maybe you should... I caught his wrist before he could touch me. 8 years of boxing training and 12 years of warehouse work had given me strength that corporate pretty boys didn't expect. Maybe I should what, Brad? Maybe I should let you finish destroying my marriage in peace? Maybe I should ignore the fact that you've been screwing my wife while your pregnant wife sits at home? The bar had gone completely quiet now. Every eye was on us. Brad tried to pull his hand free, but I held on. You're making a scene. Am I? Because I thought you two were the ones making scenes. In hotel rooms, in office supply closets, in the back seats of cars like a couple of teenagers. Let go of me. Sure thing. I released his wrist and stepped back. Enjoy your evening, both of you. I have a feeling you won't have many more opportunities like this. I walked out of the bar with every eye following me, leaving my wife and her lover to deal with the wreckage. The real show was just getting started. Friday morning brought the news I'd been waiting for. Jimmy's cousin called him before dawn with an update that had the warehouse buzzing by 7 a.m. Boss, you're not gonna believe this, Jimmy said, finding me in my office. HR suspended Dana and your wife, pending a full investigation. And that Brad guy? They transferred him to the Omaha territory. Effective immediately. Omaha? That's brutal. Gets worse. His wife cleaned out their joint accounts before filing the divorce papers. Took the kids to her mother's place in California. Guy's got nothing left but his job, and even that's hanging by a thread. I shook my head sympathetically. Sounds like poor decisions catching up with him. Yeah, well, karma's a bitch with a long memory. Talia hadn't come home the night before. Her car wasn't in the driveway when I got back from Murphy's, and her side of the bed stayed cold all night. Part of me wondered if she'd gone to Dana's place, or maybe checked into a hotel to think things through. The answer came in a text at noon. Staying at Nikki's for a few days. Needs space to figure things out. Nikki. Talia's best friend from college. now working as a regional supervisor for the same retail chain. I'd met her a handful of times at company functions. Blonde, ambitious, with the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. I texted back, "Take all the time you need." But time wasn't what Talia needed. What she needed was a reality check, and I was about to deliver one. That afternoon, I called an old friend from my Army days. Tony Ricci had gone into private investigation after his discharge, specializing in corporate fraud and infidelity cases. We'd kept in touch over the years, mostly Christmas cards and the occasional beer when he was in town. "Ethan, good to hear from you. Though something tells me this isn't a social call." "Afraid not, Tony. I need a favor. Professional work, full rate, complete discretion." "What kind of work?" I told him about Nikki, about her connection to Talia, about the feeling I had that there was more to the story than simple adultery. "You want me to dig into the friend?" "I want you to dig into everything. Her finances, her work history, her relationships. Something doesn't add up about this whole situation, and I think she might be the missing piece. Give me a week." He delivered in 3 days. "Your instincts were right," Tony said, sliding a manila folder across the table at our meeting spot, a diner on the outskirts of town. "Nikki Chen isn't just your wife's friend. She's been playing a much bigger game." I opened the folder. Bank statements, email printouts, phone records, employment documents. A paper trail that painted a picture I hadn't expected. "She's been embezzling from her company for 2 years," Tony continued. "Small amounts, carefully hidden, but it adds up to about $40,000. She's also been selling proprietary information to competitors, using her position to access data she shouldn't have. And Talia? Your wife stumbled onto some irregularities in Nikki's accounts about 6 months ago. Instead of reporting it, Nikki convinced her to stay quiet. That's when the affair started." I looked up from the documents. "Nikki orchestrated the affair?" "She introduced your wife to Brad at a company mixer, encouraged the relationship, even helped arrange their meetings. My guess is she needed Talia compromised, someone she could control if the embezzlement ever came to light." "And Dana?" "Dana discovered the affair through office gossip and decided to use it for her own purposes. She's been leveraging both women for sexual favors and inside information. Classic predatory behavior." The pieces clicked into place like a puzzle solving itself. Nikki hadn't been supporting Talia's affair out of friendship. She'd been orchestrating it, using my wife as a shield, while she looted her company and sold secrets to the competition. "There's more," Tony said. "Nikki's been feeding information to HR about other employees, getting rid of anyone who might pose a threat to her operation. She's the one who suggested the anonymous tip system that led to your wife's investigation. She turned in her own conspirator? She's cutting loose ends. Your wife was getting too careless, too emotional. The affair was supposed to be discreet, but Talia started making demands, threatening to leave you, talking about going public. Nikki couldn't control her anymore, so she decided to sacrifice her." I closed the folder, my mind racing through implications. What about Brad? Collateral damage. Nikki needed him gone too, so she made sure his wife found out about the affair. 2 birds, 1 stone. And now Talia's staying at Nikki's place, where Nikki can monitor her, control the narrative, maybe even convince her to take the fall for the whole thing. I paid Tony his fee and drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. The house felt different now. Emptier, but somehow cleaner. Like a fever had broken. That night, I made copies of everything Tony had given me. 1 set went into a safety deposit box I'd opened that morning. Another went to a lawyer I'd consulted about divorce proceedings. The 3rd set stayed with me. It was time to end this game, but first, I needed to get my wife away from Nikki's influence. I texted Talia, "We need to talk. It's about Nikki. Meet me at the diner on Route 9 tomorrow at noon. Come alone." Her response came an hour later. "Why? What about Nikki?" "Just trust me. One last time." The next morning, I drove to the diner early and took a booth in the back where we could talk privately. Talia arrived exactly at noon, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "You look terrible," I said as she slid into the seat across from me. "Thanks." Really what every woman wants to hear. But there was no venom in it, just exhaustion. I'm not trying to hurt you, Tal. I'm trying to help you. Help me what? Accept that my marriage is over? Accept that I destroyed everything for a man who won't even return my calls now that he's been transferred? Help you understand that you've been played. I slid the folder across the table. Read it. All of it. She opened the folder reluctantly, her expression changing as she absorbed the information. Bank statements showing Nikki's embezzlement, email chains proving she'd been selling company secrets, phone records documenting her manipulation of the affair. This can't be right, Talia whispered. Nikki's my friend. She was trying to help me find happiness. Nikki was using you as a human shield while she robbed her company blind. The affair wasn't about your happiness. It was about keeping you compromised so you couldn't report what you'd discovered. Talia's hands shook as she turned pages. She said you were holding me back. She said I deserved better. She said what she needed to say to keep you under control. And when you started getting too messy, too emotional, she threw you to the wolves. The HR investigation? Nikki tipped them off. She's the anonymous source. She decided you were too much of a liability. Talia closed the folder and stared at me across the table. Why are you showing me this? Because despite everything, I don't want to see you go to prison for something you didn't do. And because you're going to help me make sure Nikki pays for what she's done. What do you want me to do? I leaned forward. I want you to go back to her place. Act normal. And I want you to get her to confess. She'll never confess to me. She will if she thinks you're willing to take the fall for her crimes. She will if she thinks you're ready to run away together. Talia stared at me for a long moment. You've changed, Ethan. The man I married never would have thought of something like this. The man you married never had to. She was quiet for a minute, processing everything. Finally, she nodded. What do you need me to do? The plan was simple. Talia would return to Nikki's apartment and tell her that the investigation was closing in, that she was scared and ready to run. She'd suggest they disappear together, start fresh somewhere else. And while Nikki was explaining why that wouldn't work, why Talia needed to stay and face the consequences alone, Talia would be recording every word. I gave her a digital recorder, small enough to hide in her purse, with enough battery life for hours of conversation. We synchronized our watches and agreed on a signal. If things went wrong, she'd text me groceries, and I'd call the police. Are you sure about this? She asked as we sat in my car outside Nikki's apartment complex. Are you? She looked up at the building, at the window, where her best friend was probably planning her next move. I trusted her completely, told her everything about our marriage, our problems, our finances. She knew exactly which buttons to push. She's good at reading people. That's how con artists work. Is that what she is? A con artist? She's whatever she needs to be to get what she wants. Right now, she needs you to be the fall guy for her crimes. Talia nodded and got out of the car. I watched her walk into the building, then drove to a coffee shop across the street to wait. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Text from Talia. It's working. She's talking. Another hour passed, then another. I was starting to worry when my phone rang. It's done, Talia said. I got everything. Everything. The embezzlement, the information selling, her plan to pin it all on me. She even admitted to manipulating the affair, to feeding information to HR. She thinks I'm going to take the money and disappear while she stays here and plays innocent. Where are you now? Bathroom. She's making us dinner to celebrate our new beginning. Ethan, she's completely delusional. She actually thinks I'm in love with her, that the affair was just a cover for my real feelings. That explained a lot. Nikki hadn't just been using Talia as a shield. She'd been trying to steal her completely, to destroy her marriage and replace me in her affections. Can you get out of there safely? I think so. She's not suspicious. She thinks she's won. Meet me at the warehouse in an hour. We'll finish this tonight. The warehouse was empty when Talia arrived, just security lights and shadows. I'd sent the night crew home early, claiming equipment maintenance. We had the place to ourselves. Did you bring it? I asked. She handed me the recorder. 2 hours of confession. She laid out the whole scheme, every detail. I plugged the recorder into my laptop and listened to snippets. Nikki's voice was clear, confident, completely incriminating. She'd admitted to crimes that would put her away for years, all because she thought she was finally getting what she wanted. What happens now? Talia asked. Now we give everyone what they deserve. I'd spent the afternoon making calls, setting up the final act. The warehouse had a conference room with video calling capability, normally used for meetings with corporate. Tonight, it would serve a different purpose. At 9 p.m., I sent texts to 4 people: Nikki, Dana, Brad, and Lorraine from HR. Each message was slightly different, but the core was the same. Evidence of embezzlement and corporate espionage discovered. Emergency meeting required. Warehouse conference room, 10 p.m. Come alone. You think they'll all show up? Talia asked. They'll show up. They can't afford not to. Nikki arrived first, looking nervous but determined. She'd dressed carefully, professionally, like she was going to a job interview instead of a reckoning. Ethan, what's this about? Where's Talia? She's safe. Have a seat. Dana came next, her usual composure cracked around the edges. The investigation had taken its toll, and she looked older, more fragile than her corporate photos. Brad was last, driving up in a rental car, since his BMW was still in the shop getting the scratches repaired. He looked like hell, unshaven and hollow-eyed. What the hell is this? He demanded as he walked into the conference room. This is...